Over 7,000 guardians of the first emperor of China started to be unearthed in 1974. Their arms, legs and bodies were all factory-made from common parts. This was mass production Chinese style, but in 210 BC. An astounding story is emerging about what happened during the 22 centuries since these warriors were assembled.
It is said that the dragon is the symbol of China. Our company is at the stage when the dragon first appears. The dragon has just begun to show its powers, but has not yet taken off.
Zhang Ruiming is boss of Haier, a Chinese manufacturer preparing to spread its wings worldwide.
This tomb was discovered in 1974 during building works. People were amazed at this discovery.
Professor Han Rubin is a metallurgist. She has proof of an almost unimaginable industrial past in China.
Through working with archaeologists, we can now reveal to the world the significance of the first industrial revolution using iron and steel technology.
But why has this industrial past remained hidden? And what does this past tell us about China's future? To reach the future, some people are taking a sledgehammer to the past.
This is the hammer that we used. We gathered all the products that had quality problems in front of the workers and asked each one of them to destroy the product that they had made. What we destroyed were not refrigerators, but a mentality. Many of them were in tears. They were deeply shaken. I think through this action, we were able to change a deep-rooted mentality.
This former party official has built Haier from the shell of a bust state company. Haier makes every kind of consumer electronics, from washing machines to televisions. Haier is attempting to rid itself of a rigid mentality that over time destroyed an ancient and astonishing industrial past. It may seem incredible, but for centuries Chinese industry led the world. But where is the evidence of this past? In Jingdejian in southern China, it's still easy to explore the past. Here is a city dedicated to porcelain production. Huang Yuanpeng began his career as an academic. Now Huang uses this knowledge to recreate the past in a private business making copies of ancient imperial porcelain.
The kiln smoke has never stopped rising for over 1,000 years. The kilns in the rest of the world couldn't match Jindagen's kilns. There were 300 kilns in Jindagen. It was said that the sky never went dark, and there was a constant sound of rolling thunder.
Water hammers still thunder as they have for hundreds of years, crushing ingredients for the clay. This is not a place that looks as if it ever had any influence on the world. But it did. Research into old Chinese texts shows why. In 1637, an official called Song Yingxing recorded what he saw in Jingduozhen. His book is now a unique technical manual.
I have observed that a portion of clay must pass through 72 different processes before it is finally made into a cup.
So the porcelain was made by people who specialized in different stages of the production.
There was clear division of labor. This was industrial factory-style production. This was the first place on Earth to experience capitalist-style industrial production.
Around the world, historians now agree that almost 1,000 years ago, Jingduozhen became the world's first industrial city. But how was this possible? Locally, it's still called the porcelain capital of the world because exports were so huge.
Jindagen's porcelain has been excavated by archaeologists across Asia, Europe, and the east coast of Africa. Our porcelain-making technology also had a great influence in Europe.
2,500. It's a gentleman's bid there at 2,500. I'm out. The commission is out.
For centuries, this porcelain was unique. No other country could match its quality and beauty. Ia Jiming is a world expert.
It's not got a single flower in the middle that the decoration comes.
Exports certainly helped Jingduozhen develop, but the real driving force was imperial power.
If a dynasty was prosperous, its ceramics were superb. If a dynasty was in decline, its ceramics were poor. We have a saying in Chinese, yin qi zhijing, which means you can tell the political and economic state of China from its porcelain.
Do you want it here on the phones? Yours on the telephone at 7,000.
Annual orders from the imperial court were up to 100,000 items. Millions of pieces were given as gifts to foreigners when they submitted to Chinese rule. As well as porcelain, the emperors demanded huge quantities of fine textiles. Tax records for the year 1077 show that over 2.6 million rolls of silk were delivered. In 1393, the first Ming emperor ordered toilet paper from his Bureau of Imperial Supplies.
720,000 sheets measuring 3 feet by 2 for general court use, and 15,000 sheets, 3 inches square, light yellow, thick but soft and perfumed, for special supply to the imperial family.
Paper is made from bamboo, grass, or wood bark. In this valley in Sichuan in southwest China, they make paper that is highly prized by painters and calligraphers as far away as Japan. Paper is a Chinese invention, dating back 2,200 years. Printing was also invented in China, and like paper, the technology was passed to Europe along the famous Silk Roads. Wood blocks were carved to create cheap copies. 1,000 years ago, 10,000 sheets were printed every day to support imperial bureaucracy. The demand for printed books needed someone to invent movable type. Bishung obliged in the 11th century. This was 450 years before the first book was printed in Europe. Bishung created baked clay type to deal with the thousands of Chinese characters. For over 1,500 years, paper and printing made China a book-rich culture. This is just a small section of the imperial archives in Beijing. One emperor's personal library. In 1614, an influential English scholar, Francis Bacon, recognized the importance of printing for human development.
It is well to observe the force and virtue and consequences of discoveries, namely printing, the compass, and gunpowder. For these three have changed the whole state and face of things throughout the world. The first in literature, the second in navigation, and the third in warfare.
But Bacon did not know that all three inventions had come from China. If he'd traveled to China, he would have been astounded. At that time, the Ming emperors were building their Great Wall. How would Bacon have reacted to its thousands of miles? Bacon could have sailed on the Grand Canal. Construction started over 2,000 years ago. Imperial power was underpinned by grain tax. Every year, hundreds of thousands of tons were transported to the capital from the rice-producing areas of the south. The canal stretched 1,100 miles, from Hangzhou to its northern terminus at Beijing. That's the equivalent of Miami to New York. In Beijing, every brick and log needed to build the massive imperial palace was brought up the canal. But for the really dramatic new clues about China's past, the search must go underground. This is the sound of power that lay silent in a tomb since 433 BC.
We often use the phrase, the city is immersed in the sound of bells. The sound of the bells told people that a banquet or great procession was happening inside the palace court.
Bronze bells were a symbol of ultimate power for their owner. These were unearthed in Hubei province in 1978.
A huge number of ritual objects, lacquer, bamboo, gold, jade and bronze vessels were found. But the most important item was this huge set of bells. One of these sets of bells weighs over 2,500 kilograms. To be able to produce a combination of such big bronze pieces was phenomenal.
Today's craftsmen try to replicate these bells. As well as bells, many ornate ritual vessels were cast. But so far, these craftsmen cannot match the quality of the finest bronzes that were buried alongside their powerful owners.
With the burial system, there were clear rules. Kings may have 9 vessels, princes 7, ministers 5, deputy ministers 3, and gentlemen have just 1. Ordinary people were not allowed any.
These magnificent tomb artifacts are being displayed at new museums, such as this one in Zhengzhou. China was very late in starting modern archaeology. This dramatic story of China's past is only now unfolding, using the emerging pattern of new facts. The power behind these bronzes still inspires awe.
The way people were buried shows they believed in an afterlife. All their belongings were buried with them, and the tombs became a miniature version of their lives on Earth. These burial rituals are revealing very valuable new information about the past.
One of the most exciting of new discoveries is a tomb on the outskirts of Beijing.
Look, here's a horse that was buried with its owner. See? Head, legs, ribs and teeth.
A grandson of the Emperor Han Wudi was buried here in 45 BC.
Some weapons were found in this tomb, and some tools. These 2 chariots are over 2,000 years old.
But what matters here is not elitist bronze, but a metal that caused a revolution for the masses.
Our iron and steel industry began to develop as early as the 5th century BC, and this contributed greatly to military and agricultural development. The proof is here and in many tombs all over China. The iron axe we found here is ideal for laboratory analysis. Oh, look, the character on it that says "you." Our research suggests this was made in Yuyang. 2,000 years ago, Yuyang was one of 49 factories built by the Emperor Han Wudi. The iron and steel weapons and tools made were all of similar standard and design. This tomb used a huge quantity of wood, so it would have been impossible to have built it without iron tools.
This wood survived 2,000 years as it was insulated from the environment. This was done by encasing the tomb in a shell of charcoal and clay. The tomb was built with tools like these. This is a new Buddhist temple on Mount Ermei in southwest China. No nails are used, just wooden joints. This is how palaces were built 3,500 years ago. And today's carpenters use bamboo records and measuring tools, just as their ancestors did. Professors Kejuing and Han are both top metallurgists. After 20 years' research, how can they be so sure about iron and steel in China's past? Ke and Han can see into and so prove the exact age and nature of the steel and iron unearthed.
This sample is from an iron axe, which was unearthed from the Tisheng Valley. This proves that during the Han Dynasty, China was already producing malleable cast iron.
The conclusions are astounding. Over 2,000 years ago, the Chinese were mass-producing iron and steel artifacts using techniques claimed to be invented during the Industrial Revolution in England only 250 years ago. But how did the Chinese manage this, thousands of years earlier than Europe?
The reason China was able to mass-produce and utilize iron when other countries could hardly produce it, and then only in tiny amounts, was largely due to the development of pottery in early China.
7,000 years ago, there was little difference between the pottery made by any civilization. But Chinese kiln development was to have far-reaching consequences.
In ancient times, the key factor for iron and steel was the ability to achieve and maintain high temperatures.
Chang Shourong is one of China's most experienced steelmakers.
For pottery, 900 degrees is normally sufficient, but porcelain needs an extra 250 degrees. And for iron and steel, it must reach 1,500 degrees centigrade.
Reaching 900 degrees was easy, but 1,150 degrees for porcelain needed ingenuity. Just under 2,000 years ago, the Chinese had the solution. In the ancient industrial city of Jingdezhen, you can still see how they did it. Feng Xianglun may live in a humble home, but he has extraordinary and ancient skills. Feng is one of only 2 remaining master craftsmen. They alone have the skill to operate imperial wood-fired kilns.
Look at this one. Coal-fired kilns can't give porcelain such a finish. You must have wood resin to give you the very best glaze.
In an imperial kiln, master craftsman Feng and his team are getting ready for a firing. An ingenious firebox is constructed as part of the brick door that is built to seal the kiln. The design creates a tremendous air draft that raises the temperature.
The heat of the fire is drawn from the front through the kiln. The smaller porcelain items can't take the highest temperatures, so they're put in the rear.
The kiln must be kept at 1150 degrees centigrade for 24 hours, some feet without a thermometer.
I spit into the kiln to check temperature changes. When the porcelain is fired, the kiln will make a light hissing sound.
Massive walls provide insulation to retain heat. This, combined with airflow, were crucial steps towards the world's first iron and steel revolution. But it needed one last breakthrough to push the temperature up that last 100 degrees to create liquid iron for casting on a massive scale. And this was the key: forced air. As any traveler knows, high temperature for cooking is used like this right across China. As early as 400 BC, a pump was invented in China that provided continuous forced air. Unlike the European bellows, airflow is virtually constant, and that made all the difference. Even a small hand-driven fan can liquefy aluminium scrap. Cheap pots are made like this in many country towns. The jigsaw was complete, the iron flowed, and revolution was in the air. One ruthless man used the iron and steel to create an empire. Qin Shi Huang ranks with empire builders such as Alexander the Great. He united China and became its first emperor in 221 BC. The terracotta warriors that still guard his tomb near modern-day Xi'an symbolize his military strengths. But the greatest achievement of Qin Shi Huang was to exploit iron and steel to create the foundations of his empire.
Massive iron production contributed significantly to the development of ancient Chinese civilization and culture. because the iron tools used for construction hugely increased productivity.
With iron and steel tools, millions were mobilized. They created a transport system that was fundamental to creating and controlling the empire. How the first emperor dug canals can still be seen in Sichuan in southwest China. 1,000 miles southeast of his capital, Qin Shi Huang dug this canal to join the Yangtze in central China with the Pearl River in the south. A water and road network matching anything the Romans created. "20 centuries ago, they mass-produced identical tools and weapons by the million. Solid iron castings could also be huge. 8 oxen, made in 724 AD, were unearthed in 1988. Weighing 35 tons each, these were anchor posts for a floating bridge across the Yellow River. Iron and steel also allowed China to feed her huge population. In the 1st century AD, there were already 40 million mouths to feed.
The Chinese were the first to use plows with iron blades. With cast iron tools, productivity soared, making it possible to feed an increasing population.
The foundation of the Chinese Empire created an economy that led the world till the 19th century. And new archaeological evidence reveals an almost unimaginable scale. In 1080, in 1 year alone, a staggering 5.9 billion coins were minted. These are molds for casting money.
You must observe that China is a much richer country than any part of Europe.
So wrote Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, in 1776 in his famous book, The Wealth of Nations. Adam Smith knew about China's great industries of tea, porcelain, and silk. But the days when silk from Chinese factories dominated the world have gone. Just over 150 years ago, a turning point was reached. 2 inventions that China had given the world returned with explosive force. Guns and gunpowder were turned on China by a newly industrializing West. Without a navy, the Chinese could not defend themselves against European sea power. This led to a disastrous defeat in 1840 in a war with the British. The debate about how and why a once mighty China declines so rapidly still rages today.
Following the Industrial Revolution in Britain, manufacturing went through a great many changes that enabled great progress. However, China still stuck to old-fashioned ways of production and was left behind.
But why did China get stuck and not change?
The main reason was China's system of imperial civil service examinations. To become a top official, it was imperative to study Chinese history and literature to pass the exams. Passing the exams was the only way to get influence and power. So, officials didn't devote any of their energies to the natural sciences such as physics or chemistry, and that affected China's technological development.
At this academy for officials in Beijing, there were simple rules. Total obedience and no individuality. Centuries of imperial exam results are carved in stone. These are the names of officials who ran China on the orders of the emperor.
All this writing is identical in style. There's no variety. It shows tremendous caution. It's like having 1,000 people with only one face. You had to obey the rules of the examinations and rigidly follow the style of writing. You also had to observe official thinking. If you disobeyed any of the rules, you would fail your examinations. So thinking was very restricted.
One emperor, Guangxu, did attempt reform in 1898. But his mother, the Empress Cixi, seized power and firmly blocked change. Her move sealed the death of over 2,000 years of imperial power in 1912. Students burst into revolt on May 4th, 1919. They demanded reform together with modern science and technology. They wanted to destroy China's ancient educational traditions.
We've been restricted by these 2,000-year-old traditions. We have many problems, but we have a strong background through our 5,000-year-old civilization, and I believe that we can recover our creativity.
Recovery began, but was hampered by continual war and revolution, up till 1949. In 1949, Mao reunited the country. Progress was at first spectacular, but Mao's dreams brought about chaos again.
The whole country has been mobilized to make steel, led by the party. 90 million people have been sent to the mountains to cut trees, find iron ore, and make steel. Over 1 million small furnaces have been set up, using the traditional smelting methods. The whole country is inspired. Everyone has joined in making steel, and we're expecting a great leap forward.
The iron was useless for modern needs. But just as extraordinary as this disaster is the recovery since Mao's death in 1976. China is once again the world's biggest iron and steel producer. But how could that be possible? China has managed to telescope into a few decades stages of industrialization that took America a century. This model is now reality. Jiang has helped create one of China's most modern iron and steel plants.
The steel industry has developed very quickly as a result of Deng's open-door policy. After Deng's reform, all of China's industry, not only its steel industry, has really developed fast.
一不加入这个发展的行列啊，这个落后啊，很难赶上。现在我们本来就是有些就是落后，但是不是一切都落后。
Mao's successor, Deng Xiaoping, triggered unprecedented recovery. But opening the door to catch up is one thing. Another is surviving in the global commercial jungle. So how can China cope with the competition of mass production in a world market?
It's like a miracle, building an entire new city with all its factories in just 5 years. I grew up in the countryside. China's economy has always been rural-based.
The city of Dongguan in southern China symbolizes the speed with which mass production is re-emerging in China. Barely a decade ago, this was just farms and villages.
I asked the government to help me build a factory. They said it would be finished within 6 months. We didn't believe them. Later, we found them working day and night, and the factory was finished as they promised. We thought it was a miracle. We are now the world leader in producing computer power supply units and have built 5 factories here.
From scratch, Bruce Cheng has built a business that now has annual sales of $2 billion US. He started in Taiwan, but like thousands of others, he's transferred his manufacturing to the mainland. But why risk investing in a country which only a few years ago Deng Xiaoping had called backward? The answer is scale. Taiwan is a small island, and the mainland offered a limitless supply of low-wage workers.
The initial reason I came was for cheap labor, but the reality turned out different. China has more to offer than just cheap labor. Local engineers and managers learn fast. That's why we've grown so quickly here.
In computers, Taiwanese companies lead the world in manufacturing parts. Look at the labels inside any laptop computer for the proof. So in this factory, here is evidence of how China has managed to leapfrog into mass production and with world-beating high-technology products. But it is perhaps too soon for the world to have confidence in such products. The labels on the production lines still read, "Made in Taiwan."
China is mysterious for many Westerners, and they still think we have pigtails, wispy beards, and small eyes. This is a complete misunderstanding.
$450 million people are urban dwellers. In less than 2 decades, 600 cities mushroomed. Flying to major cities is now as easy as catching a bus. For Chinese scientists, the world has become their laboratory.
So if you need anything, just let me know. We can talk about it later. See any possibility.
Professor Hong Guofan and his team are hosting a conference in Shanghai. The Genome Project will unlock the secrets of rice to win higher yields.
From those, make DNA, digest with enzyme.
There are more than 200 scientists coming from various parts of the world. So we have a good opportunity to exchange ideas, views, and expertise.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the occasion of the opening of the 6th International Symposium on Rice Molecular Biology in Shanghai, rice is an important crop in the world, and especially in China.
Many countries now are participating in the Rice Genome Project. So I think this international effort, it's too big. The rice genome is too big. So it consists of 12 chromosomes, and it's a very big one. So it's very hard for a single country to tackle all these problems.
Hong's institute is part of a global network of laboratories, allowing his scientists to roam the world.
I tell the young scientists, you can work here for 3 or 4 years. Then after that, you have absolutely freedom. You can leave this thing. You go anywhere you please. You can go abroad. You can join the lab in the United States, in the European countries. And the average size...
China is fast catching up. Professor Hong is a scientific code breaker. But might another ancient code be holding them back? Could the complex ancient writing system throttle progress? Millions come here to revere their ancient culture. Mount Tai is the holiest mountain in China. Scattered on its slopes are stone carvings left by countless pilgrims. The oldest records a visit by the first emperor 22 centuries ago. The writing system he imposed has hardly changed in all that time. A staggering stock of 20,000 individual characters is needed by printers using movable type. Getting instantaneous composing and printing seemed an impossible challenge. An academic in Beijing, called Wang Xuan, set himself the task. His solution ranks with the invention of movable type in the 11th century by Bi Xiong.
For 18 years, I've had no vacation at all. No Sundays, no New Year holiday, no winter or summer holidays, not even Spring Festival. Putting all the Chinese characters together, with 50 different fonts and sizes, we found we could occupy 20 billion bytes of computer storage. So, we developed a mathematical method where 20 billion bytes were reduced to 20 megabytes.
The breakthrough allowed rapid manipulation of thousands of characters on standard computers. It allows instant and razor-sharp print quality. The solution created the Founder Group. It's working here in the composing room of Shanghai's leading newspaper, as it is for virtually every Chinese publisher. Japanese and American newspapers have now bought it for speed and quality, as it works in any language. In the cities, science and technology are driving China forward to catch up with the world. But in the countryside, are millions of people falling further and further behind?
People wanted economic development, but without a phone network, it was virtually impossible.
A Chinese company, Huawei, came up with a high-tech but low-cost solution that is selling worldwide.
Call it high-tech if you like, but our customers are farmers, and so we've made it simple and easy to operate.
The phone changed our lives. We now only need a few minutes to solve problems that used to take days.
It's simple. Just tie the aerial to a bamboo pole and make sure it's facing in the right direction.
Innovation and creativity means sweeping away the curse of backwardness. So what happened at Haier, once a bankrupt state enterprise?
Our staff are told that we, the management, don't pay them. Our customers do. Earning money means satisfying customers.
Haier literally smashed the rigid mentality of the past.
Some of our workers thought they had no education, no special skills, so they had nothing creative to give. This is dangerous thinking. So, we encourage them to be creative.
Every day, the best worker stands here and introduces their experiences, thoughts, and achievements in the work area to the whole factory.
For Haier, even the mud on potatoes can be pay dirt if you're prepared to innovate.
After they had made little money, some farmers bought washing machines. They didn't want to wash potatoes by hand anymore. Of course, it wrecked the washing machines. So we told our technicians of the market need to make a washing machine that can wash potatoes. The technician's first reaction was that the farmers were stupid. How could anyone think of using a washing machine for potatoes? He said that if there was a need, we should satisfy it. Not a great invention, but it satisfied a market need.
Potato washing machines may not be a fundamental discovery, but other ideas may utterly change China. Haier's base is Qingdao on the eastern seaboard. Plans are being hatched that will reach into even the most remote households. In the far northwest, nothing seems to have changed in centuries for cotton farmers like Hu Changjie. But even here, farmers are getting wired for the information age. Well over 300 million households have televisions, and 20% are cabled with access to multiple channels.
In China, television is very popular, so we wondered how we might exploit it. We started to design and experiment and came up with a product.
That product connects ordinary televisions to the internet.
If 100 million families in China go on the internet, this will provide the bridge between China and the world. The change it will bring will be revolutionary. It will shrink the distance between China and the world and bring the two much closer together.
It is certain much more of China's past will be unearthed. There will be more evidence of this civilization's awesome strengths. The past could be the best guide to where China is headed next.